I haven't done presentations in front of a crowd for probably 15 years. So apologize now in advance. I did take, years and years ago, a public speaking course. And so one of the things that they always told us when we were watching was count the ums. And so if you're listening to a speaker and they stop with a bunch of ums, there would be somebody in the back corner that would put a little check mark, and it cost you 25 cents for every So the trick that I'm going to try and do today is hopefully avoid a bunch of ums. Thank you very much. I want to thank Ken and the staff for allowing me to come and talk to you. I'm looking at the clock and I know lunch is coming, so we'll get going right away. Really quickly, Agrocorp, we have 4 locations. Moose Jaw, Cut Knife, Filaire, Innisfail. Innisfail is undergoing a big expansion right now. Locally here, we work with LA Grain, and many of you have probably sold some grain to LA Grain that has come through Agrocorp. We're working with 40 Mile Grain Exchange down in Foremost also, and we ship some stuff out of 5 Sons. Biggest news this year probably has to be the announcement on November 8th from the Indian government when they came out with their 50% duty on peas. All year long we were hearing stuff about fumigation issues, and then they'd give us a postponement. And it was just kind of building up till November 8th when they imposed this 50% duty. Right away, the market reacted with a big plunge, right, as we all saw. Now, part of the reason is the Indian government is sitting on close to 1 million metric tons of pulses in store that they don't know what to do with, that they have purchased when prices were higher. And now all of a sudden they're sitting on these stocks. So it's a multifaceted issue that's causing this problem. The domestic farmers in India are looking for their minimum support price levels, right? Now the seeding is carrying on. Their dry season or Rabi season seeding is underway right now. And it's progressing faster than normal or better than normal in good conditions. So you get all these things adding up to what's happening with India. Also, something we haven't seen in earlier years was competition from countries like Kazakhstan and Russia and Australia in terms of pulses. Just to show you what kind of impact this has, India on the left, India on the left, that's their total amount of imports of pulses, or yellow peas. So if we look then that that market is being restricted, you can see why especially yellow peas have been hit as hard as they have been. You know, if you look at China, about half in comparison. So if you quickly look at a quick supply and demand study, lots of numbers there. I think the biggest thing you got to look down at the bottom right-hand corner is carry out. 15%, 15+%. We're going to reduce the acres, but we're going to have a bigger carry out or unsold product. Here's this slide I was talking about earlier, the Rabi seeding planting progress. If you got the latest version of this, I put this in last week. If you get the latest version of this, it's actually above the blue line now. So that means that they're progressing very rapidly. They're talking now that they're going to have between 1.2 1.25 million metric tons of pulses rather than, or peas, sorry, rather than their average about 1 million metric tons of peas. What's that doing to our bids? There you go. You can drastically see the November 8th drop. Reds, greens, and small greens, how they follow each other. Now that's Saskatchewan prices, I understand, but the relationship is what we're looking at here. This is an interesting one. If you take a look at the price of red lentils in the last 10 to 15 years, and you look at back in 07, we look at, okay, we had the wheat board, and if we remember the wheat board, that first year took 75% of the A series on durum, and then the next year they said they were only going to take 70 or 65% of the A series contract. And what we did was we planted a bunch of lentils. And that took that price and drove it right down into that dip right there at the beginning. Everybody backs off of seeding lentils and the price recovers, demand comes back. So if you look at this, it's 2007, 2012, 2017. It's very cyclical. It looks, or it's shaping up to be very cyclical 5-year rotation. How long does it take to recover? Year, year and a half. So the idea is, where are we in that bottom? Have we formed it yet? Are we going to start coming out? Are we going to zigzag for a while? Again, we have more competition from outside countries that we didn't have back in 05 and 07. Red lentil supply and demand. This one is probably the worst looking one of the whole bunch, 40%. Again, look at the total supply from last year to this year drops. However, the carry in, or what we carry out, unsold. Boy, the room's dead quiet. I must be full of bad news. Large green lentils shaping up very similar, 56. Medium greens, there, 6.5, 6.63. So there is some lights out there, light at the end of the tunnels. Wheat, I'm going to jump ahead to wheat. We had the drought back in July. Everybody saw the futures jump up. And then, of course, as we carry on into August or September and October, the fear that the markets had over the drought in the Dakotas didn't impact the market as much as everybody thought. Prices dropped. The neat thing about this, and it's kind of good that I'm talking to Southern Alberta farmers, is it did some crazy things with the protein spreads, right? And if you look at that in and itself this year, what happened was I had a bunch of farmers up and around Red Deer, North, ooh, $9 in July. So they all went out, booked a bunch of $9 wheat in July, right? What do you book? You book a number 2, 13.5. Harvest comes along. You're anywhere around Red Deer. If you can find number 2, 13.5 wheat, good luck. It's all number 1, number 2, 11.5, 12. And so what happens is the line companies on the other side that booked that $9 wheat turned around and sold it to export at number 2, 13.5. And so this number 2, 13.5 demand is there, and they've got grain that they have to pull from the farmers in central Alberta, that's 11.5, 12 Pro. So they're caught in this conundrum. Where do we got to get this protein wheat, and that's why you're seeing these protein spreads and grain companies paying up to like 18%, I heard the other day, where they normally stop at 15, 14, 5, 15. Barley's on a little bit of a run. Barley acres have been down consistently over the last 14 years. Malt has been trying to chase itself. We're seeing more and more production contracts in malt just because they want to know that they've got that supply. I was just talking to some guys this morning across the line, and they're thinking that for them to contract acres, the first number has to start with a 5. So $5, $5.25, $5.50 a bushel, somewhere in there. Not a whole lot of malting contracts out yet. Some preliminary ones. Some guys are pushing that $4.75, $4.80 range. I think there's better yet to come. The interesting thing here that I like to look at on barley, and I've said this for years, is we always get the low after harvest. And then we get distinct highs through the year. And the thing to watch is where the cattle are in the feedlots and where everybody's a seller, right? So if you look at coming into November, December, feedlots always got to cover barley for Christmas. And that's why we're seeing a little bit of a run here in November going into Christmas season. Because one old feedlot guy told me years ago, Dave, no grain is not an option. So they always purchase about 15 to 20% more than their needs through the Christmas season. That excess gets carried into January. January, the price of feed barley usually goes down. And we see it kind of stagger along, and then it starts to come back up later in earlier into spring, and then when we get May, June is typically the highs. This year, what we're seeing on barley is the whole trend going up, primarily due to China has been buying or looking for barley to import. So we've been exporting some barley to China. The problem with, and why the chart hasn't gone straight up, is that we're seeing corn come in and corn come in and replace barley. So I sat down the other day and I looked through a bunch of stuff, and I called a bunch of friends, farmers, and I went through and said, okay, what's your 5-year averages, right? What are we looking at yield-wise? And then I did a bunch of digging through all of my paperwork and whatever else and came up with just gross revenue per acre. I didn't take into account costs. This is just gross revenue per acre. So if you take a look, the shining star this year is going to be, of course, chickpeas. Now I heard that there was some chickpea new crop contracts floating around that 40 to 43 cents even as early as last week. They contracted about 10,000 acres or 10,000 tons, and that number is backed off underneath 40. The trick with the chickpeas, of course, is try to find seed. Canola is the next shining star. I was looking at this morning, StatsCan came out. We've again had a biggest canola crop ever, 21.31 million metric tons. And the market took a little drop, but I think we can absorb that. Crush demand has really grown, and so canola is always going to be a shining star unless we get close to 23 to 24 million metric tons, which we haven't yet. Flax, green lentils, mustard. Winter wheat surprised me. Now, a little late to plan for winter wheat now, but winter wheat surprised me, how it was even better than new crop amber durum. Malt, that malt number I did, it was approximately $5 a bushel. So if you figure out that maybe we can catch a contract at $5.50, that'll move that over. Yellow peas and lentils. The lentils I did at 16. I'm hearing lentils today covering around 18 cents, old and new crop contracts available, so that can move over a smidge. Yellow peas are holding firm 650 to 675. Old and new crop contracts. Does that mean everybody's going to jump out of red lentils and yellow peas? I'm seeing a marked decrease in acres for certain. I was visiting a friend at a seed cleaning plant south of town here, and he had piles and piles of red spring wheat on the counter, and he said to me, yeah, guys came in, cleaned their peas, and now they're bringing in more wheat to replace their pea acres. So we'll probably see an increase in some wheat acres this year. There we go. I want to thank everyone. Am I right on time for lunch, Ken? Where is Ken? Oh, Ken had to go. Are we on time for lunch? Thank you, everyone.
We are just checking, always an interesting field to take a look at grain markets and trends and predictions. But just wondering, does anyone have a question for David at all about what he's seeing in trends or what they're looking for?
I was trying to escape.
Oh, you were trying to escape questions. Oh, okay. So does that mean I should toss you one?
Go ahead.
All right, and have you been in touch with, when you were phoning around to your phone a friend there, were you talking to any of the seed cleaning plants to get any sense of if they're noticing any different trends in terms of what folks are really going to put in the ground this year?
Well, like I was saying, it seems like we're seeing a marked increase in wheat cleaned for acres for seeding from some of the seed cleaning plants so far.
And canola? Are you going to say?
Canola is always going to be strong because canola prices are good, right? Yeah.
Okay, so we won't ask him what prices are going to do. All right, well, thank you so much. Let's put our hands together for one more time for David Seifridt.